Welcome back to part 2 of planning your 2023 garden. Today I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about plants and seeds because if you're going to want to get seeds, now's the time to start thinking about ordering them or at least kind of get a mental list of what you want. Now, if you watched the last video I did about planning, hopefully you might have more of a sense of what kind of a garden you want, whether you want a summer snacking garden or a summer harvesting garden where you're harvesting those traditional summer crops, whether you want to have a garden that's going to supply you more of those spring and fall crops also, or whether you're wanting to grow enough food that you are able to put some food away for the winter months. So hopefully you have a little bit of a sense of what you want to do, and then when you have and what space you have available to you. So the next thing you need to decide is what exactly you want to plant, which is kind of the fun part. But it's also important to know a little bit of what can be planted when in order to be successful and not to waste a bunch of money on things you're not going to get a harvest out of. Some things you can direct seed right into your garden. So that when I mean direct seed, I mean just you've got the seed, you're putting it directly into your garden and you're sowing that directly. All right. And some things you can't do that. Some things we're here in Connecticut in zone 6A, we don't have a long enough growing season for some crops, and usually those crops are the main ones we think about in the summertime for that summer garden kind of a feel. It's those tomatoes and peppers and eggplants and onions. We don't have a long enough growing season to put the seed in the ground once the risk of frost is gone, and then have it grow up to maturity and produce fruit before our first frost comes. Just to give you a framework, our last frost is usually mid-May, around May 15th, and our first frost is usually around mid-October. So we're kind of working between those two dates, particularly for those warm season crops. So those are the crops that really can't handle frost without being protected in some way. Just to list some of those crops, the typical ones are our tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, onions, our herbs like our parsley, oregano, basil, leeks and scallions also can kind of fall into that area. The crops that can handle a little bit of a frost are what are considered our cool season crops. And so those are all of our brassicas, our broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, collard, Swiss chard. Those can take a bit of a frost, so usually it means you can get those in earlier before the risk of that frost has passed, and they can stay in a little bit later after your first frost, and it usually won't take them out. And actually with a lot of things like your kale, it makes them taste better, and carrots and things like that. So once you get a sense of what exactly you want to grow, and I think the best thing to do is just grow what you like. I mean, it's fine to experiment, and I do that all the time, and I put in things and then I go, I don't like fennel. No, I didn't like, I grew it, I didn't like it. I grew turnips, nobody ate them. So, it's fun to do that and experiment. But I think certainly if you're just starting out, just grow things that you know that you're going to like. And that's just going to make you feel more successful and that your family's going to like. So once you have decided what exactly you want to grow, then it's important to determine, okay, well, what category does that fall in? Does that fall into a warm season crop or a cool season crop? When do I need to get that in? Now, the typical warm season crops, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, they do not have a long enough growing season to start those by seed, unless you're starting them by seed on your own indoors before that last frost, or you're buying them as a plant from a nursery or like a big box store or something like that. Same thing with broccoli, Brussels sprouts. anything in that brassica family, as well as onions. You're gonna need, if you're doing onions from seed, you're gonna need to buy those as a plant or start your own seeds. The main things that you can direct sow would be your root crops. So your beets, carrots, radishes, kohlrabi, I'm blanking on other things. Those are going to be the things that you can direct sow. Parsnips, yeah, those are things that you can direct sow. You can also direct sow your vining crops like your squashes, winter squashes, summer squashes, zucchinis, things like that. If you start them on your own or by the plant, you certainly can get a head start. And you also have an opportunity for things like zucchini or cucumbers to succession plant them, because a lot of crops will get taken out. They're generally not going to produce the entire summer long for you unless you get really lucky and you don't have any pests or diseases. But so it's nice to kind of have a succession planting. So with all of that said, here is my big plug for starting seeds on your own compared to buying them at the store. I think for people who are doing a small summer snacking garden, buying seeds at the buying plants at the store is a completely viable option and way easier. Now, when you're buying plants from a store, you are kind of at the mercy of what they have to offer, right? You're not going to get a huge selection. You're probably not going to find any fancy heirloom varieties of tomatoes, or if you're trying to do things in pots primarily, you might not get varieties that are conducive to pots for all the different things you want to grow. So you're just really not going to have the options. But it's still totally doable to buy things at the store, the plants at the store. I grow everything from seed here, and I'm gonna do another video on my setup, my grow station setup, which is not complicated at all. The reason for me, just my personal opinion, why I think investing in some grow lights and starting seeds on your own is better, is one, you have more variety selection. You can really find plants that you like, tomatoes that you like. You just can find a lot of things that you like, that and not just be at the mercy of whatever the store has, Lowe's or Home Depot, or you can find more if you go to a specialty nursery. The other reason is the cost. There's just no denying I could not have a garden the size that I do if I had to buy all plants. It's prohibitive. It just wouldn't financially be worthwhile because it would be so expensive. The cost to have the soil and buy the seeds and the sheer quantity of plants that you can grow out of one seed packet is there's just no contest. So yes, it's more work, but you also have more control over what you're going to grow and what the outcome is going to be. And in my opinion, it's the most fun part. So to watch the seedlings grow, and you don't have to deal with pests or diseases, and you're in a nice little safe place, growing them indoors. It is more work, but my opinion is it's well worth it for the cost savings of trying to get a large amount of plants if you're going to try to grow big, and then also for the variety that you can get. So that's my my plug and my 2 cents for why I would recommend starting seeds on your own indoors. The next question is, well, when do I plant? When do I transplant outside? When do I buy my plants at the store, and when should I get them in by? If I am starting seeds on my own, when should I start that? When can I put them outside? That can be really confusing, and I'm just going to come back and say, the growveg.com app is super helpful in that regard. It literally will lay out you know, section by section throughout the month, a calendar of, you know, start your, you know, onions this, you know, in the beginning of this month, transplant them out at the beginning of this month. They should be ready to harvest or beginning, you know, around this time. And it really helps to take all the guesswork out of that aspect of the gardening. So again, I really highly recommend checking out the growveg.com app in terms of that. I am going to be breaking this down even further, but I'm going to do it into separate videos. So I'm going to go each category of crop. So I'm going to talk about like brassicas and starting those indoors or buying plants and just some specific. So those will just be little short videos on each crop that's kind of a part of this kind of aspect of thinking about what you're going to order. So the last thing I want to mention is just my recommendations for what companies that I buy seeds from. So I have had luck with Johnny's Selected Seeds is a really big company. They're fantastic. True Leaf Market has great seed selection. Gurney's Seeds is great. I bought some seeds from M.I. Gardner with luck there. Pine Tree, I've had luck there, and that's the main ones I've bought from. Urban Farmer, I've bought some from their site as well. I primarily buy stuff from Johnny Selected Seeds and have had really great luck with them, and they're quick shipping, turnaround, and they have a really wide selection because they're such a big company. That's part 2, a little bit about thinking about what you're going to need to order in terms of seeds and plants and what you want to do. Stay tuned for future videos. Thanks so much, and happy gardening.